I asked you quite a few questions with regards to Islam, but it seems that you are very reluctant to answer them. Why is it so? Question mark. So this is an interesting question directed towards me, saying that I'm reluctant to answer question about Islam. Because if you are familiar with my videos, I address a lot of things, even the sensitive questions, the age of the marriage, etc., etc., right? So I don't run away from any question normally. So I'm interested because this is a long thread, and to this point he made the claim that I'm very reluctant to answer them. So we'll go straight to the very top to see which question that I seemingly reluctant to address, because maybe I forgot some of the questions. So let's see. So this is quite a long thread. Hopefully this video is not that long. Alright. Oops. Okay, so it started with this guy make this comment. Islam has scientific inaccuracies, historical inaccuracies, geographical inaccuracies, theological inaccuracies, and many more inaccuracies. So when I read this, there are several things that I have heard of in terms of the claim or the accusation. For example, scientific inaccuracies. This is made under the video where it actually addressed a claim of scientific inaccuracies. So I've heard of some of the claims, of course, and I have heard of the rebuttals. Historical inaccuracies, I've heard some. For example, they say this happened that time, but that the Quran says something different. So that kind of inaccuracies claim or accusation I've heard of. Geographical inaccuracies is somewhat similar to historical, meaning something happened somewhere, something. I cannot recollect, but I've heard some. Theological inaccuracies, this one, you know, grabbed my attention, because what exactly are you saying? Like, I don't know, because when I say about Christianity, for example, a triune God, 3-in-1, etc., that's what I would ascribe to theological discussion. Hence, inaccuracy between the theology and the Bible claim, etc., right? So in Islam, what kind of theological inaccuracies have been brought up? So I'm curious about that. So that's why I ask, care to share some theological inaccuracies? And then he stated, Islam believes in Tawheed, but yet you can't be Muslim or be saved without obeying Allah in the Quran and Muhammad in the hadiths. That is shirk. So this is an interesting claim. Of course, we go one by one. Islam believes in Tawheed. Yes, we believe that the oneness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, God of all universe and mankind, and it is the oneness, we profess the oneness. But yet you cannot be Muslim or be saved without obeying Allah in the Quran and Muhammad in the hadith. And then suddenly that is shirk. So I assume he misunderstands the concept of Tawheed, which is only one God, and God sending prophet and messenger. And when a prophet and messenger teach something, it is under the guidance and command of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we have to obey. I'm not sure whether, because in Christianity the concept of prophet is different, meaning prophet doesn't need to be someone eligible or someone worthy of being obeyed or being, you know, a source of truth, even, you know, because the prophets in the Bible is very different in terms of characteristic being told there, incomparable to Islam, right? In Islam, all and each and every one of the prophets have a highest of character, etc. So it is logical when God asked the people to follow the prophet, and including Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I'm not sure how is that shirk. It would be shirk if anyone make Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam like Christian make Jesus to be, which is if anyone says Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is also divine or is, I don't know, part of God, etc., na'uzubillah, so that is shirk. But when you say that we follow the prophet as per command of God, like when God say you have to obey the command of the Prophet as part of my command. That is not shirk. So I'm not sure what he's saying here. And then he added, so it seems you agree that Islam has scientific inaccuracies, historical inaccuracies, geographical inaccuracies, but you are not aware of. So the sentence here is even bizarre to me, at least to me, right? I'm not sure about him, because he says you agree in contradiction to you are not aware of. So I'm not aware of, yes, I'm not aware of theological ones. So I ask, but when I'm aware of something, doesn't mean I'm agreeing with that, right? I'm asking for something that I haven't heard of. Just because I'm asking about that doesn't mean that with that I agree with all the other accusation, right? So I'm just interested to know what is this. I never heard of it. And then my response, are you confusing the command of God to obey prophets that relaying the message of God and implementing the command of God with Tawheed? If anyone elevates Muhammad to become God, like what Christian did with Prophet Jesus, then it is indeed shirk. But if people simply obey Prophet Jesus and Muhammad, that is not shirk. What they convey and teach is Tawheed, because what Jesus and what Muhammad and what Ibrahim and Moses, all of their teaching would be to teach Tawheed and how to obey the one true God through the teachings. So obeying them is obviously not shirk, it's opposite of shirk. So I'm not sure what's the confusion there, as I stated. And then to the other comment, when did I agree to those? I just have heard of people claim those things and seen it refuted many times. But this is the first time I've heard of theological inaccuracies, because normally Christians are the one that always have to explain many things within Christianity that are theologically conflicting and contradicting. So I'm quite aware of the quote-unquote theological inaccuracies in Christianity, but I have never even heard of a claim with regard to Islam, hence that's why. So of course what he bring forth about the Tawheed, but that's obviously his confusion of the concept, because if that is his strong point about the inaccuracies of theology, then it's already being addressed. How would you obey Allah? So he want to start a questioning, I guess. And then I said, when did I agree to those? If you do not agree, you would have asked me about them, but you didn't. Silence is consent. So the context is bizarre to me, because it would be different. I can understand if I say I don't agree with this. You understand that, oh, you don't agree with this, but you actually agree with the rest. That can still make sense. But if I say, what about this? I have never heard of it. Oh, so you accept and agree with this? Well, no, I do not say I don't agree with this, hence the rest is I agree. I'm not aware of this, means I'm aware of the rest. Aware is not consent or agreeing, right? So I hope that is clear to the rest, even though it is not clear to him. By following the commands, okay, this is to how do you obey God or Allah? By following the commands and stay away from prohibitions, essentially. And then, so you would obey Allah by following the commandment and stay away from prohibition. So how would you obey Muhammad? So, and this is, so we are having two parallel discussion simultaneously, so it might be confusing. When did I agree to those? You agree to those when you do not question them. So I haven't, maybe he expect me to bring everything together, right? Because normally I just go bit by bit. I do not want to everything to become a cluster of, you know, messy thing. So I verify one by one, because otherwise the comment will be very long and it will be hard to track, at least for me. I know maybe for others it's not a problem. For me, I would like to address one bit and one bit. So when I'm confused, this what is this? So I ask that first. Maybe he's not familiar with my style, so assume that that's the complete addressing the whole context of the comment. So he expects that if I don't agree with anything, I should already point out there and then, and I didn't, because that's not how I go about. I just go with the more fundamental one. I'm not even aware of this. Can you clarify what this is? Bring me some example, and then I intend to address them all, but suddenly it goes to this kind of discussion. So if anyone elevates Muhammad to become God, this is my comment. He quoted my comment. Let us put to the test whether Jesus is God or not. Show me one thing Allah can do that Jesus cannot do. So this is one of his, because we begin with, later on he said that I do not answer question about Islam, right? So I guess this is one of the question. Show me one thing that Allah can do that Jesus cannot do, and I will show you one thing Jesus can do that Allah cannot do. This will prove not only that Jesus is God, but a bigger God than Allah. I'm not sure about the logic he applied here, but I think from his thought, it is logical. I ask, care to share some theological inaccuracies? Okay, this is again to that question, right? Because I wanted to know example of those claims. It seems you are mistakenly take it as not questioning any of those claims. Surely, I don't accept the validity of any of the claim in inaccuracy that you stated. Just that I'm curious about examples of inaccuracies claim that I have never heard of. You stated, if you do not agree, then you would have asked me to share some inaccuracies regarding them. Wrong. I would ask to share some if I'm not aware of it. If I'm already aware of the claim, I don't need to ask for any samples. So the sentence here that I quote even doesn't make sense, right? Because if you say, if he had said, if you do not agree, you would have raised your disagreement. Yeah, that makes sense. But if you say, if you do not agree, you do not ask for some example, some inaccuracy, meaning some example. That doesn't make sense, right? It doesn't match. Asking for examples is not not being aware of the example, right? It doesn't correlate with agreeing or disagreeing. Anyway, so I commented, show me one thing that Allah can do that Jesus cannot do. So I answered, created the universe. So this is normally how I answer. If anything that can be answered straightforward, I just answer straightforward. What Allah can do that Jesus cannot do? Created the universe, created heaven and hell, created Jesus, created Adam. So those are among the examples that obviously Allah did or God did, but Jesus didn't do. And then he said, Jesus is the creator too, so are Brahma and Hubal. So interestingly, I'm not sure, is he someone believing in this? Or Jesus is creator, Brahma is a creator, Hubal is a creator. So there are many creators. Is that what he believe in? Or he just say any claim is valid at this point? I'm not sure, because there's no elaboration here. When you stated earlier, let us put to the test whether Jesus is God or not in relation to the comparison of elevates Muhammad to become God, because that's the starting point to my knowledge. I thought you are talking about Jesus that people know, the people that the human that walk on earth, just like Muhammad that people know. If you meant Jesus that only Christian know, which refer to one of the three persons, right? Because I think one Christian preacher said this, God have three who, because the three person, and Jesus, which is one of the who, have two what, meaning the human what and the God what, right? So are you talking about, because in the sense of the rest of the human being, we only know Jesus as human, and when he posed the challenge, right, say one thing that Allah can do and Jesus cannot. So I'm perceiving it from that perspective, not from the perspective of your own belief that you believe that Jesus is one of the triune God, because that's already a conclusion, right? That's already a conclusion. So when we want to evaluate, we evaluate Jesus that we agree on, the human. So that's why I say my answer. So if you meant Jesus that only Christian know, meaning that Jesus is within the one of the three person of God, then your statement, let us put it to the test whether Jesus is God or not, does not make sense, right? Because if you say, let's test whether Jesus one of the three person in God, let's test whether he's God or not. What does that even mean? Because the conclusion precedes the question, right? And then Muslims know that Jesus is God, but they deny it. Okay, when I read this again now, that still trigger a laugh in me, because this claim is claiming knowing that Muslim know Jesus is God, but Muslim deny. I don't know. I don't know where he get this idea. I really do not know. Did he know any Muslim that is something like that? That's so bizarre to me. But anyway, you know that Jesus is God, but you deny it. So he claimed, he is so sure that I myself know that Jesus is God, but I deny it. So bizarre. Jews knew that Jesus is God, but that is why they wanted to kill him. The logic here is bizarre as well, because from the story in the Bible and what Christians say they understand from it is that the Jews say Jesus has blasphemed, right? What was the word? Meaning that because he claimed to be God. This is what Christians understand. It's not what I understand. What Christian claims is that the Jews see Jesus claiming to be God, hence that is a blasphemous, that's a blasphemy, he need to be killed. It is not like this, right? Or Jesus, oh my God, that's actually God, let's kill him. What logic is that? This is the first time I've heard this actually, right? A Christian claiming Jews know that Jesus is actually God, and that's why, oh my God, that's God, let's kill him. What? I don't know. I don't know how to make this make sense. You fail the test now. You are finding a way to bail out. What? I will give you an answer. So I don't even know. I don't even know what is playing in his mind and how he perceived my answer to be something else interesting. And then that's why, because I laugh, so I just pronounced to him that I laughed. Muslims know that Jesus is God, but they deny it. Lol. Laughing out loud, because it comes out loud, really. It's not just inside, laughing inside. It's when I read it just bursts out. Now, because I'm reading it for the second or third time, it doesn't trigger such a laughter in the first place, right? And then he replied, Muslims know that Jesus is God, but lol. Okay, so that's the whole, he quoted my comment. I threw you a challenge, and yet you have not come back with a reply. I assume the challenge of what Allah can do but Jesus cannot do, which I have already replied. If Jesus is not God, show me one thing Allah can do that Jesus cannot do. So either two things, because the way he answered is based on Jesus is one of the three person in God, right? If if I read it correctly. So he want to say that either, I'm not sure what he's trying to compare, whether he's trying to compare what Allah claim Allah can do in the Quran versus what Jesus claim, what the authors of the Bible claim Jesus do as God. I'm not sure what exactly. So is he comparing two claim in different books? Because the verse, the sentence is like, tell me what Allah can do and I tell you what Jesus can do. It's like we're talking about the same thing, not a different claim. So maybe the way he phrased the question, it's something that I cannot understand what he actually meant, or sometimes, or I don't know. Okay, so that's repeating the question. That will not only prove that Jesus is God, but is a bigger God than Allah. Alright. So my answer in the previous comment, so I just reiterate what is he asking. So I'm reiterating my answer. So this is what Allah did, what Jesus didn't do. And for on the lol part, it is simply because you make such a ludicrous statement. On your statement, I will show you one thing Jesus can do that Allah cannot do. So this is my comment. There would be a lot of things, right? Like being born, being a dependent baby, be human that depend on food, in need of sleep, have weaknesses, can be hurt and tortured, can die as human die. All of those are not characteristics of God, the Creator. So when he say he will show many things that Jesus can do, but Allah cannot, I can list many, because there are many things that human is part of human being, but it is impossible for God, right? It is impossible for God to be in need of food, to be in need of rest, to be weak, to be forgetful, etc. Right? Okay, so he quoted this, and then sure, Allah is creator, so is Jesus. So I'm not sure what this mean, unless he mean that sure, Quran says Allah is creator and Bible says Jesus is creator. If that is what he mean, then I can at least understand, okay, that's how. But when based on this statement in itself, this is bizarre, because I wouldn't agree with that statement, right? Allah God is a creator. Jesus is not. My challenge was to give me one thing Allah can do that Jesus cannot do, etc. So he's still repeating the question that I still do not understand. Once you give me one thing, okay, no need to be spoiled. So he's emphasizing the question. And then this is the second part, being born, etc. Right? If Allah was all powerful and was able to enter creation as a man like Yahweh, the true God of Abraham, surely he would have to go through the process of becoming and living as a man. This is interesting. My honest question to you is, do all Christians believe in the same thing? That they believe that God is all powerful, that when God all powerful come into the creation as a man, he would have to go through the process of becoming and living as a man. Is that how Christians believe? Because if God is so powerful, why would God be restricted by the law? Right? Of course, the law of how human being born, there's a process. But that process is not, God can do something outside of the process of the world. Even Jesus was born without a father, because the complete process require both, from mother and father, right? And then the process happened. So can God do something outside of the rule of the universe? Sure. The creation of Jesus eliminate the father from the process. The creation of Eve or Hawa, she doesn't even have a father or mother, right? The way she is created is totally different. The creation of Adam is totally different as well, right? Doesn't need a father or mother. So interestingly, from a Christian perspective, knowing that Jesus, of course, okay, Jesus is the question now. Knowing that Hawa or Eve do not need to go through that process of being born. Adam do not have to go through the process of being born. And suddenly God cannot even emulate Adam's process or Eve's process or something else, because God is not bound by the law he put forth, right? Why because here the statement that he made is he would have to go through the process, because meaning that he is bound by the law of the process. If he say he choose because of something, because Christians normally like to be emotional, right? God want to feel like us, etc., right? So that it doesn't make sense, but at least there's some logical path you want to follow that. But when you say that God is bound by the law that he put forth to the universe, that means that God is no longer all powerful, right? So that's a question to Christian, whether you agree with this statement. At one time, when Allah was all powerful, was able to enter His creation, He will become bush and leaf, branch, roots, all things He made tree, while the descended. So I'm not sure what He mentioned here. Is He referring to Bible? Because my perception is He's using the Bible, the stories of the Bible, impose it on Allah, and assume I accept for that to be a basis, which is bizarre, because I don't accept the Bible to be a reliable source. So whatever story in there, I do not accept to be true. But suddenly you expect me to already believe in all what the Bible have said, and have to answer based on that foundation. That is, to me, so bizarre, right? As well as this one, right? If Allah all-powerful was able to enter creation like Yahweh through God of Abraham, so this is based on Bible, right? So many of the question that he posed is based on me accepting the Bible when I haven't never accept the Bible. So that's where I see, how come he asked a question where that question presuppose a foundation that I never agree upon. Anyway, so when did Jesus created the universe, or heaven or hell? So that's one question, because he said that Jesus also created. When? And then, are you saying that all powerful God should be able to be weak? Because based on his question, I got puzzled, and I want to understand properly. Is this what he meant? Are you saying that all powerful God should be able to be weak? Are you saying that all-knowing God should be able to have amnesia? Are you saying that the eternal God should be able to cease to exist? Because that's contradicting, right? If you say God is eternal, but at the same time God can choose to no longer be eternal, that what is eternal then? Right? What is eternal then? If you say God have no beginning, no end, that normally what I say eternal, right? But if you say that yes, God have no beginning, but God can have an end, because when you say able to die, able to cease to exist, meaning God can have an end, but God by definition is no beginning, no end. So that is a contradiction of logic, that brain that you have. Yeah, how that's the thing, right? That's so bizarre to me. If that is the case, then obviously we have a very different definition of what God is. Because for me, God by definition, all-knowing, all-powerful, eternal, etc., right? By definition, when I say God, it is by definition all-powerful, all-knowing, eternal. And for you, that is not necessarily the case. So is he having something like, I don't know, the Greek mythology, etc., like the many gods of Thor, etc. I'm not sure why those are considered gods. It's like a different being have more power, but they also have weakness. They have also their issues, right? That's not God. I'm not sure. You are strawmanning the argument, so I'm not sure where. I can rephrase my argument if you have problem comprehending it. So which is strawmanning? I guess this one, because he say Allah was able to enter, surely he have to go through the process of become a living man, right? So meaning that God have to become no longer God, have to become weak, and etc., right? And he become bush, leaf, blah blah blah, right? I'm not sure whether he say that when God become bush, it is the most eternal bush, all-knowing bush. I'm not sure, because bush by definition is not eternal. I don't know. So I'm not sure where I'm strawmanning. Maybe I'm missing something. And then he said about when Jesus created. In the beginning, God created the heavens and earth. The first chapter, Genesis, gives you an account of the creation story. The first chapter of John tells you who that God is. So this is combining, because in the Genesis, right, God, blah, blah, God, blah, blah. But then it doesn't mean in this state Jesus, right? And you have to go to John to bring something to say that as if Jesus there, right? So there's two sources, neither of both, or neither of the sources that I accept anyway, right? Here is the elephant in the room. Every man and his dog know what his God is, creator, all-knowing, eternal, etc. But what all religion, including Islam, don't know is who God is. It is only Christianity that knows who God is. Do you know who Allah is? This question is interesting because I think only Christian emphasize discussion about God in this way. I guess because they have to have a way to justify the discussion about the triune, the multiple person of God, right? Otherwise, there's no need of enforcing this kind of discussion, right? Meaning, God is God. What do you mean? Because normally when Christians say who, they when say God, no, they're not. They want to know, because there's two things. One is some Christian is already so, I don't know, about the personal name, right? So that's, we have some discussion about that previously. But here, who God is, right? So it kind of lead to the multiple who, I guess. I don't know, because if you have that concept, because if there's a different religion have a totally different concept that none other religion have, that doesn't mean that it is any true of the rest, and compared to the rest, right? And then I'm curious, which statement of mine that you see as strawmanning the argument? And then even if you wish, okay, this is okay, even if you wish for me to accept the Bible as a relevant basis of this discussion, the verses that said God, not Jesus, that created heavens and earth. So that's Genesis, because I have read at least the beginning of Genesis. So it says God, God, and God, right? And of course in Arabic, Allah, Allah, and Allah. It doesn't say Jesus there. You would have to use other verses elsewhere and interpret it and its interpretation to plug into the verse about God, to then conclude God that created the heaven and earth is Jesus. Yeah, it is interesting because when Jesus come into creation, right? God come into creation. I'm not sure actually. Do Christians believe that all three persons come, or only Jesus, the Son, come? Because if only the Son come, and many of the Bible verses kind of indicate that the Father and the Son is basically interacting, right? So it means that they can be doing different things, right? Meaning Father is doing something, the Son doing something. So if you believe is as such, and suddenly you see that Jesus created the universe, how do you know? Is it when God is being referred, it involved the three persons, meaning the three persons together created the universe? Or why is it not just the Father or Holy Spirit? That's an honest question, right? How do you know when it's not explicitly mentioned? Anyway, you would, if your question to me already assumes such conclusion, which is Jesus is God, to be accepted prior to the question, then that would already be a secular reasoning, right? Because his answer, his question is that, tell me what Allah can do, Jesus cannot do, and I answer, right? And then he said, but Jesus is also this created the universe, but that require the question already accept that Jesus is part of God. But then you are asking, so it doesn't make sense to me. I'm not sure if I missed anything. When you ask me to compare God and Jesus while expecting me to already accept your premise that Jesus is God, what exactly is the question towards me? Right? So that's how I feel. You ask me, okay, let's compare. I will prove to you Jesus is God, but the way you prove it is already based on Jesus is God in the first place, right? Because when you say, no, Jesus already created, but that's based on that, and I have to accept that to begin with for that the whole discussion to be making sense, right? So that's a secular thing, bizarre. Muslim Okay, so this is to the question, who is God? Do Islam teach who is God? Muslim know Allah based on what Allah revealed about himself. So I quoted Surah Al-Ikhlas. Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. So the translation is there, right? This is one of the many verses in the Quran where Allah reveals things about Allah that we should know and believe in, right? So we do not make up stuff. When God revealed, this is what you should know about God, that's what we know about God. So he replied, even if you wish for me to accept them, okay, so that's the quote. Yes, I expect you to go to the Bible to deal with issue arising from the Bible. Why would I want you to go to Quran or Bhagavad Gita? And I would expect you to interpret the Bible according to how... Okay, so that's the interesting part. So maybe I totally misunderstand his question to begin with. His question is about comparing the two books then, if this is how he put it, right? Meaning that I will show you, meaning what did Allah do based on Quran? I will show you based on the Bible that Jesus is God and a greater God. But that question doesn't really interest me if I understand it correctly from the beginning, if that is the case, because you are saying that you will make a claim based on the Bible that shows that based on this claim, Jesus is a greater God than Allah in this claim. But if I say, but I don't even interested in any claim from that source, because that source is not reliable. So comparing, if someone says, but in Harry Potter, the book, there's a greater God. See, he can do what Jesus cannot do, what Allah cannot do based on these two books, right? So what's the point of that discussion even? Right? Because this is exactly what he's trying to discuss, if this is what he expects, right? Meaning that if his initial question is about Jesus as described in the Bible, show that Jesus as described in the Bible is greater than how Allah is being described in the Quran. If that is the premise, then why do even discuss? Why even discuss between one source that I can believe in and another source that not reliable? Because then suddenly someone else, maybe that's why he says that Brahma is greater as well, because he says that let's compare claim by different book. So what? Because if you know, if that book says Brahma, that book says the spaghetti monster, that book says whatever, why do we even discuss this? Right? Just brush aside all of those unreliable sources about God. Right? So yeah, so maybe I totally understand what he's proposing up front, because the way he worded it. That's why I like to clarify the statement normally. I didn't expect that statement means totally something else than how it looks literally, right? And then suddenly, isn't the belief in the previous scripture the fourth pillar of Islam? So now suddenly this going to this. We have a lot of discussion in the comment section on this question before. There's a lot of, I don't know why Christian, so some of the video actually address this as well, right? Meaning that some Christian want to force to Muslim that the Injil and the Taurat mentioned in the Quran is what is in the Bible. And they are the one that is so enthusiastically want to force that conclusion. When you know, okay, so this got me tired if we go there, right? Because I've already covered this question a lot. Of course, no blame on him, because this is the first video that of mine that he ever watched, I believe. My question is not based on the assumption that Jesus is God, but it is based on your assumption that is so I'm not sure this. And to prove that you are wrong, I give you a test, not a comparative study. So now I get more confused back again, because whatever he based on is based on what the Bible claim, and he mentioned this, and then but suddenly it's not a comparative study, it's a test of whether I know what the Bible say. What? And then, but the issue is the description of Allah does not match the. So that is this thing, because he says that's a problem, because your definition and claim on description of God in the Bible, in the Quran, sorry, does not match our description that we have in the Bible. Why? I don't care. Why should I care what Allah said in the Quran in relation to what an unreliable source? It doesn't matter. If someone say what Quran says what Allah does not match the Vedas, whatever, why? I don't care, right? Okay, the battery is out. I have to replace the battery first. And then he continue, let hash this out. What do you mean by one? Okay, so this is going into a philosophical discussion or something. What do you mean by one? Of course, this discussion I think is something that Christian think that it is a normal discussion, because you have the triune or trinity to deal with, hence this discussion become, you know, part of the discussion. But if you bring this discussion to someone else, why are you even discussing this, right? So I'm quoting, my question is not based on the assumption that Jesus is God, it's based on your assumption that Jesus is not God. So because I'm tired here, I'm saying the answer is essentially because the Bible said Jesus is God, right? Because whatever he said there, based on I think Genesis and John, etc., that's based on the Bible, right? So essentially we will end up with the Bible says Jesus is God, essentially, right? In this case, some would prefer to go straight to the question how to deal with all the verses in the Bible that indicate that Jesus is not God, right? Because if that is the key issue, let's resolve that issue first, because, you know, some people point out that verses from the Bible itself indicate that Jesus is not God. So you cannot use suddenly this as a foundation of what we are discussing, right? As if it is a fact. And then, but the issue is this description of Allah does not match with the description of Yahweh, the true God of Abraham. This is an issue for Christians, not an issue for Muslim. I hope when you understand, even if you are Christian, I hope you understand by now, right? Because you are the one that believe in a certain depiction of God of Abraham based on the Bible. So I'm not implicated by that. So you cannot bring that suddenly imposed to Muslim as if it's a foundation before you accept Quran, right? Because why? That's from the Bible. You never establish that the Bible is a foundation that I have to accept in the first place. If that is established, that's a different story. So if you want to use the Bible onto Muslim, feel free to prove that we need to consider what the Bible says in the first place. For Muslims that believe the Quran as a word of God and the Bible is an unreliable book authored by many men, whatever description of God in the Quran is trustworthy and valid, while any claim about God in the Bible is not even entertained. It is an unreliable source to begin with. For Christians, sure, it is an issue because you begin with the claim that the Bible is true, the Bible to be true, and you try to match what the Quran said to what the Bible said, and then you see it doesn't match, and then you act as if it is an issue relevant to Muslim as well. So that's how I feel, because many Christians always bring some similar things, and I said, why is that related to us? I don't get it. And then he said, as he quoted this, the right way to exegete the verses where Jesus is not God is to view, okay, this is about verses that indicate that Jesus is not God, is to view in light of hypostatic union, which delineates that Jesus is both fully God and fully man. Now, to be honest, I've heard of this many times. I don't even know how to comprehend that statement. Yeah, but Christians say it's a mystery, right? And to me, yeah, it is a mystery how you can believe such a thing. There are verses you will notice Jesus speaking and doing things like God. For example, forgiving sins. Okay, I think this is based on the verse from the Bible that Jesus say your sin is forgiven. If that phrase exclusively mean that Jesus is the one forgiving, we can discuss. But it doesn't when you say when Prophet Muhammad SAW says that is forgiven, that guy actually went to hell. It's not that Prophet Muhammad SAW that pushed that guy to hell. Prophet Muhammad SAW just relay what he know from revelation from God, right? So when Jesus knew that God have forgiven the sin, your sin is forgiven, right? So that's the discussion of that verse to begin with, right? So it is interesting that those become the foundation that you see that Jesus doing this, but that one is questionable to begin with, right? So what is this all? Saying he is al-awwal al-akhir, so I'm not sure, is this the Omega and Alpha and Omega verse? I'm not sure. And then you will see he does and say like a man, example eating, etc. Right? So if you let the Bible speak for itself, it will the truth. Of course, I don't accept this to begin with, because to even consider all of this, I need a proof for the Bible to be reliable to begin with, right? So because the Bible is not reliable and no one have ever shown me proof otherwise, whatever discussion here is interesting to me to understand what Christian believe in. But if you want to say that any conclusion is valid to me, it's not. I'm not saying that I reject without consideration. I'm waiting for someone to actually bring proof that the Bible is reliable, and hence, if it's reliable, I look into it more seriously. That's what my stand is. I asked you quite a few questions with regard to Islam, but it seems that you are very reluctant to answer them. Okay, so this is interesting, because this is where we begin. And hence, I begin from the very beginning. I'm trying to detect which question that I'm reluctant to answer. But perhaps this is because the way he writes things and what it means seems to be different, right? From the beginning, we notice that. So, is this mean that I'm reluctant to answer them? It's actually, he think, because he says that I know Jesus is God, and I just deny it. So, did he, because, is he thinking that I'm reluctant to give an answer that fit his narrative? Hence, that's why he perceive I'm reluctant to answer them. When what I have done is always answer, but it seems that those answer is not the answer that he wish for. Hence, I'm reluctant. I'm not sure, because we have gone through, right, until here, the beginning point, trying to notice which question that I did not answer or address. I don't have a problem with your focus on Christianity. I'm not focusing on Christianity. This is interesting, right? I'm not sure whether he noticed this, because he is the one suddenly bring from the Bible, and when say, why are you bringing the Bible? So if you want to bring that, I will question the Bible. I will question the validity. I will question the verses, right? Because you are the one dragging it here, right? So, and suddenly it is as if I'm too focused on Christianity. Anyway, so that's a bit of the rest, because I'm wondering about his claim that I'm reluctant. Which of my statement made you think I'm reluctant? In fact, is it the fact that I don't understand why, as a Muslim, I have to accept the Bible as a basis of formulating my answer? Because he always bring the Bible as a foundation that as if I have to accept that, right? So is that why you think I'm reluctant? That is not reluctant to answer about Islam, rather not accepting the faulty premise of the question. Right? Islam do not depend on whatever the Bible say. It is not built upon the Bible. So I'm not sure. why he keep on bringing that. So about the hypostatic union, so because I don't understand it, is hypostatic union something taught by God or Jesus that can be found in the Bible, or is it a concept that is taught after to make sense of things so that the belief can still be seen as making sense? Note, even though I have heard fully God and fully man so many times, I cannot even begin to understand what that could possibly even mean. That's just an honest statement. And then towards the end, I think, so about what I say about not an issue, but for Muslim, what the Bible say, right? It is an issue for you, my friend, because if Allah lied, then you are worship. What is he? Does he know how to answer question, or did he must understand the statement? What does this have to do with the Bible, right? Because this can only be discussed if we agree, right? Okay, we agree that we both can base on our discussion on the Bible, and based on the Bible it says this, and suddenly Quran come to say something otherwise, so Allah lie. I can see that train of thought, but the Bible is not even part of a basis of a discussion, right? So suddenly you say, I'm asking, this is not an issue, whatever the Bible say. It is an issue because Allah lie. What are you talking about? Are you still holding that the Bible is a foundation that I should accept, when that's the actual question that I pose? The Bible is not even a concern of a Muslim. Of course, I understand if you are concerned that you are worshipping the wrong God and Muhammad for God, your soul is in danger, right? So that's my concern for you as well, right? If you are following whoever authored the Bible, and you are following a false depiction of God, and whoever come up with the idea that Jesus God is a false prophet or false teacher or whatever you want to call him, because I don't know who started that idea, right? Your soul is in danger as well, right? So we are here in same plane in terms of concerning that each other, are we following a false teaching, right? But I'm talking about how one thing is being considered. I'm not talking about this is serious issue, we should find out which teaching is true. We agree on that, but the issue is not oh my God. Anyway, I hope you understand the issue that I brought forth, right? Meaning that the depiction of God in Bible is one thing, and when Islam say a different thing, right? Here God can become bush, blah blah blah. Here God is God. God is not like anything. God is God. Here, yeah, God is God, but God can be bush, can be branches, can be human, can be whatever, can be dirt, can be whatever, right? That's the teaching of the Christianity. No. So he says this is a problem because it doesn't match this, but this is a problem, hence that's why this is not the same as the problematic teaching, right? So it's bizarre. Why do you believe that the Quran is the word of God? Okay, so now if you want to ask that to begin with, then at least we can ask, right? Why do you believe in the Bible in the first place? And you can ask, why do you believe in the Quran in the first place? That can be a fruitful discussion, because we can set up the first foundation of our faith. Why? Because what I believe is based on the Quran. So first, why do I believe in the Quran? And whatever you believe is on the Bible. So why do you believe in the Bible? So at least we start somewhere solid, and then we can discuss, right? But all this is because the assumption that I should already believe in the. So anyway, but okay, let me see if we don't believe in the Bible. We begin. This is interesting. We Christians do not begin from the Bible. We begin from the living word of God, Jesus Christ. how if you actually live in the time of Jesus, I can still understand why you say this, right? Because we don't depend on the Bible, because the Bible is not even in existence yet, right? The Bible come later, right? In the time of Jesus. So we depend on Jesus, for example, if you live at that time, right? So okay, makes sense. But now, how do you even, because you rely on the Bible to know about Jesus, right? Or do you have a different source? Or you just make up, I believe in Jesus, whatever, however I want to, and then, because at least a Catholic that comment says that they have the elder church, what's the word, the church elders or something. So they do not, they say that they don't depend on the Bible that much. It is helpful, there's some beneficial message, but we don't depend on it because there's a church tradition, father church tradition or something like that, right? So, but then my question would be, how you define that, what makes you believe in that? Because basically that's the source, just like, you know, the Quran is source for Islam, right? It is Islam that is book dependent, not us. This is interesting, right? Because this, I'm not sure whether he is Protestant or not, because most Christians always bring back to the Bible, but here he said, no, we don't depend on the Bible, we depend on the living word of God, Jesus Christ. I'm not sure what that means. Does that mean that each of them have their direct communication with Jesus? Hence, I don't know. In Islam, not in Islam, in Muslim community, there are some weird Muslim that goes to the extreme where they believe that they have direct connection with Prophet Muhammad SAW, hence they don't need even to read the Quran and hadiths, they simply have a dream of Prophet. So that's in a way, you know, some so-called Muslim that created something within Islam. Are you doing that in Christianity? I'm just curious. Anyway, so with that, it's already 1 hour. Thank you for watching. Hopefully you get something. I'm not sure how many still with this video until this point. Thank you for watching. See you next time.